Hello, welcome to the show. This is Emotional Badass, where Moxie meets mindful. I'm your host, Nikki Eisenhauer, life coach and psychotherapist. And on today's episode, I'm discussing 9 common irrational beliefs about trauma therapy and therapists. Hello, y'all. Thank you for tuning in. I'm glad to have you here. This episode about irrational beliefs is going to be split into 2. So look for it to be released next week. And after its release, you can check the link in the description of this episode to find a link to part 2. All right, y'all, let's get into it. Irrational beliefs are the beliefs that we really want to be true, but they're just not. These are the shoulds. When we say things like, no child should go hungry, everyone should have enough money to not be in poverty, these are really the ideals that we're operating from. And we tend to have a lot of frustration, a lot of struggle as we learn that the beliefs that we want to be true often just aren't. All right, the first one I have for you, your therapist is there to fix you. Very easy idea to have, right? A therapist is there to fix you. I'm calling this an irrational belief. Nope, this isn't rational. Believe it or not, you aren't even there to fix you. It's not about fixing. You're there to learn how to create more optimal conditions in mind and body. You're there to learn how to work with your thoughts, work with your behaviors, and release emotion in productive ways so that you can cultivate, create, have space and more bandwidth to practice new ways of being, new ways that support optimal functioning. This results in healing yourself, not fixing yourself, but healing. And when it's done really well, this type of healing grows your wisdom. It helps you make healthier decisions as you move forward on your path. Your therapist is a mirror. Your therapist is a perspective offerer. The therapist is an options explorer. Your therapist is there with the education and the know-how to connect past psychological history with what's happening in the present moment, so that you can have understanding and release old patterns that you may have picked up subconsciously that are just not serving you. A therapist is there to help you expand consciousness. The therapist is there to be a compassionate and hopefully mature, responsible, grounded adult that you can trust in trauma work. This also becomes an example for your inner child. All right, number 2, second irrational belief. Therapists are fairly similar, and I just need to pick one. Nope. Therapists are as different as creatures in the sea, y'all. Now, it's true, a licensed therapist, we all have a master's degree level of education, but the differences are far and wide. We each align with different theorists, and we reject other theories, which influence much of how we practice. I said to a colleague many years ago that I used to share an office with, because she asked me, how was your day with clients? How'd it go? And I said, oh, it was rough, just processing some countertransference. And she jumped back like she had touched a hot stove. And she said, oh, good God, I don't go there, too vulnerable. And it puzzled the hell out of me as a young therapist. I pondered for ages how she could work with people and avoid those feelings, avoid those conflicts, avoid that intensity and those honest and real emotions. It just didn't make sense to how I moved through the world or how I wanted to hold space with people. In general, transference just means when a client puts feelings onto the therapist that are about other people in his or her past or present life. I'm thinking of a client that had very strong transference with me many, many years ago. And this client, I've talked about him on the show, he tried to get me fired. He had no tangible reason. And finally, my boss, who definitely had my back, thank goodness, got him to admit that I looked and sounded like his first wife. Once he acknowledged that, it could dissipate. We could get that out of the way. And he actually worked very, very well with me. I liked him a lot. He liked me a lot. He would even come to future addiction groups in years after and tell the story to people in early recovery that he was so in his ego, he was so arrogant that he picked me to take out all his frustration on. And it was made so easy because I just happened to look like his first wife. And this is how we relate to each other in the human condition, y'all. As different as we all are, we each will hit different notes of other people we've come into contact with. This is one of those things for me that is just not rocket science. It's just one of those things that education hasn't decided to teach us when we're younger. How to deal with, how to acknowledge, how to not feel crazy when someone is hitting those buttons. I mean, what a thing for him to come into addiction treatment and have me as a doppelganger for his first wife that he had to sit with and work with. He didn't know how to work through those feelings or even acknowledge the truth of that to himself. Just until he did and until he could. Now, I had some countertransference. This is a phrase, a term that therapists are taught to pay attention to. Because if we are good at this art form, we are paying attention to our own responses, our own reactions in our minds and in our bodies to what our clients are going through so that we're making damn sure that we are not muddling what's going on for our client with our own process, our own stuff. I had countertransference with him and I knew it. And I was learning how to deal with it in the moment, just like he was learning to deal with his transference in the moment too. This is the truth of how therapy works. We can't just put on a white coat and pretend like these energies are not happening, these emotions are not happening. This is part of why I work in this realm. It makes no sense to me to pretend like this stuff isn't going on. My countertransference with him, which is just simply when the therapist puts feelings or assumptions or emotions onto the client. So I had been scapegoated a lot in my childhood family dynamic, which just means blamed for things that were out of my control or just not my fault, just not my responsibility as a little kid in a family. So I felt a lot of triggering, getting blamed as bad, getting energy thrown at me like I'm so bad I should be fired. It was very reminiscent of the dynamics I had grown up in, and I had to learn how to manage that as a therapist, as a person. And I had to deal with that away from him in my own therapeutic process. So even though objectively you don't need countertransference to have uncomfortable emotions, I didn't need to have that connection to my own family dynamic to have had a whole lot of feelings about somebody trying to fire me for no good reason. But in being willing to face my own countertransference through that process, I very strongly learned, okay, this is what's going to come up for me if a client gets angry at me. If they get angry at me in an unreasonable way, if they get angry at me in a very reasonable way. This gives me opportunity to work on this for myself and for every other client that's going to cross my path. Because we have to allow, as therapists, that clients very well may have transference with us in such ways. It is our job to hold space for them and to figure out what our issues are to work on separately from that space that is for their process. In these acknowledgments, we were able to process it and let it go. It certainly wasn't the kind of scenario that we want or we think about. Someone books a session and comes and sits down and we talk about feelings. It was chaotic. It was stressful. He lived there in treatment. We would pass each other in the hallways until we had this worked out. That therapist I mentioned sharing an office with that decided to just do cognitive behavior therapy exclusively. She would teach people about the power of thoughts, the power of behaviors, while largely staying away from emotional discussion. It was too vulnerable for her. She gets to have boundaries there. There are people that works great for. And I very much trusted her that if she wound up with a client that was cut from my cloth, she'd send them to me, recognizing that they needed emotional work that she wasn't willing to do, Good on her and good for her clients. There's great variance in therapist personality, educations, life experience, the paths they take in life, who and what issues they choose to work with, and that may change for a therapist season to season depending on what's going on in their personal life, depending on what their desires are, their affinities for this work, their strengths, and how to honor their weaknesses. Every therapist is not going to be strong in the same realms, and that's reasonable and okay. We can acknowledge that as therapists, and we can know that as clients seeking therapy. If you want to get hundreds of hours of exclusive audio and video not available anywhere else, and also support my work and the show, come find us at patreon.com/emotionalbadass. You'll immediately, instantly get monthly bonus episodes that are not available publicly. You'll get access to my monthly live stream video Q&As. You can come participate, or you can come listen to the other questions that other patrons throw into the mix. You get exclusive discounts, access to our community of badasses, and commercial-free episodes. It's the quickest way to support the show and support your own healing journey. I don't want you working any harder than you've already worked. I just want you to hit play on some of this content, fall asleep to it, let it marinate, let your subconscious soak it up. Patreon.com/emotionalbadass. The third irrational belief that I have for you when it comes to trauma therapy and therapists is that the techniques a therapist knows are what's most important to help you. It's a very common irrational belief. Sounds solid, right? There's no problem with this on its face. The techniques a therapist knows are what's most important in helping you. I'm here to say, nope. This is not a reasonable belief. It's not rational. And I know this sounds backwards. Understand that we are an anxious culture. And anxiety wants us to do a thing because that thing is tangible. When we're anxious, we feel powerless about something somewhere. And so being able to do the technique, our human egos love this. We love the technique. It's a doing that often lessens our anxiety in the moment. But that just gives us a reprieve from anxiety in the moment. It doesn't get to what is driving underneath that anxiety and driving that anxiety forward. So it offers a temporary relief when we have the thing to do. This is fine a lot of the time. I'm anxious, I'll go for a walk. It's very healthy. But it also can be a problem if every time I have an issue, I'm avoiding thinking through or feeling through the issue because I'm just going on a walk. Then that healthy tool of going on a walk, taking a break, getting some movement from my body so that I can think it through becomes a distraction, a deflection, instead of a healthy technique to be done. When it comes to working with a therapist, a lot of therapists have different little techniques in their pocket. Some of them are fun to do. They're enjoyable to do. They feel like a fun little hack. I believe it's important to differentiate healthy anxiety from dysfunctional anxiety here and work to let other factors like healthiness, usefulness, reasonableness, balance make decisions over unhealthy anxiety. Once we have a technique that works a few times, our unhealthy anxiety may say, do that technique again and again and again and again. We don't want to participate in the definition of insanity here, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. I don't want you to just have techniques that lower your anxiety in the moment. I want you to have that, but I also want you to have the availability of the work within yourself and with a therapist that helps you get to the underlying root cause so that you can clean out that root cause with the goal of, I don't have to keep battling this anxiety in my life all the days of my life. That's really the true essence of change. And that's what we want when we're having anxiety again and again and again. So in our do culture, we like the doing of a technique. Now, I love the work of Fritz Perls. He is the theorist that began Gestalt therapy, and it's foundational to who I am as a person. We have ideas from Fritz Perls like, we are greater than the sum of our parts. That's from Gestalt therapy. I am most definitely greater than the sum of my parts. You are most definitely to me greater than the sum of your parts. That is the magic of what makes us a human, a person. It is the essence of who we are that we can't just pull apart and measure. Fritz Perls believed that the most important thing in therapy is the relationship with the therapist. I believe that from the tips of my hair to the tips of my toes. This is true for me with my clients and true of the therapists who have impacted me the most over my life. Now, how could this be true when colleges teach what therapy is and then therapists are supposed to go out into the world and conduct therapy? How could the relationship be the most important thing? I'm going to try to explain. The relationships that have helped me the most therapeutically really gave me a model for my own work with clients. It may have taught me more of how to be with clients than anything from my college experience. The people who have been the most impactful to me showed me that I could trust them way before they ever pulled out a technique. Then when they pulled out a technique, because I had a trust in them, I was willing to try their technique, which made the technique more effective for me from my place of willingness. There's a lot of energy exchange between the intimacy of therapist and client in trauma work. And that relationship is inherently hard, if not impossible, to measure. What grew the trust in a therapist for me was everything that happened outside of or before the actual therapy, like their level of warmth. There's no class that teaches you how to be warm. You're either warm in your temperament or you're not. Kindness, ability to actually listen to me in a first-time call or a first session, an ability to give me a sense that they were getting me, understanding me. Trust building has to do with so much nonverbal communication, like eye contact. For me to trust a therapist, they have to be able to give me confident, mature, grounded, strong, direct eye contact. Not avoidant eye contact, not creepily staring me down eye contact. The skills of being able to listen and give engaged feedback. They have to not drift off and fall asleep, something I've experienced with at least 3 different therapy professionals when I was a younger woman. Therapists I've trusted have been able to be consistent. We make an appointment, they're there, and they're there on time, ready. The biggest factor in my trusting a therapist, honestly, is in the therapist being able to own a simple mistake or an oversight with maturity, respect, kindness, without justification or blame or immaturity. It was such a gift for me, though I didn't know it in the moment, that I got lost. I didn't know if I was in the right place the very first time I met my long-term healer and colleague and therapist and coach and mentor and sister and mother. She hadn't mentioned that it was a home office. I was losing a lot of time from post-traumatic stress symptoms at the time. I was panicking when she came out, thinking I might miss the appointment if I'm in the wrong place. And when she walked outside, I realized, okay, she matches her picture. I'm in the right place. I had an edge to my voice because of my nervous system being totally fried. And I said with that edge in my voice, I didn't know if this was the right place. I thought I was looking for an office and this is a house. And she looked concerned, genuinely. And she said, I'm so sorry. I should have told you that. And I'll make a point to make sure I'm telling that to people moving forward. Thank you for telling me. And my heart swelled. Even today, I can feel it. It made me want to burst out crying, and I didn't understand in the moment why. It took me weeks to process why. It was one of the first times in my life I saw someone simply and easily receive a complaint from me, number one, and then own it simply, saying, I'm sorry, with a promise of an adjustment moving forward and a gracious thank you. This moment was more profound for me and showed me I could trust her more than anything she did with me. That was actual therapy in those first months together. In trauma work, it is every moment of interaction, because people coming to you as a therapist have been so betrayed. They are so desperate to be able to trust someone that it is inherently important that anyone billing themselves, naming themselves trauma therapist, understands that and is able to deliver everything outside of that actual therapy space that helps the client develop a reasonable sense of trust to be able to do the deeper work. Number 4 is this: the therapist fee is for the time you spend together. Nope. Depending on where you are, if you're seeking local services, therapy might be $100 to $500 an hour. You're not paying for 1 hour or 50 minutes. That's the traditional therapy time. You're not paying for those minutes. You're paying for the extensive education of that therapist, their experience, their life experience, believe it or not, their educational experience, their guidance, their insights, their intimacy, the office space, the technology they're using, the scheduler that costs money to use, the AC, the heat, their continuing education. And yes, on top of all of that, for them to make a profit, because they have to live and they love to help. But helping as a profession also means, to do it well and not burn out, that you have to make enough money to not be sitting at a poverty level where you are so stressed about what you're charging or the salary you're making that you can't take very good care of yourself either. That makes for a very codependent therapist who's not making enough money to reasonably take care of their own bills and their own self-care so that they can show up in integrity of caring for others. When you show up and pay for a therapy session, that's how we typically think of it. It's how it's typically billed. Yes, you're paying for that time, the space, the undivided attention of that 50-minute session. The old adage, you get what you pay for, can very much apply here. And that can be very upsetting, especially to younger people. We seem to be living through a cultural wave that everything should be affordable to everybody. And for a different episode, that would also be an irrational belief. Life just doesn't work that way, never has. I come from a mostly blue-collar background, which is rare in the field of therapy. In anything that takes a whole lot of academics, most people come from a white-collar background. They have white-collar experience. I have a lot of blue-collar experience and white-collar experience. That's a very different experience to have with a therapist. But coming from a blue-collar background, it shocked me that by year 2 of being in private practice as a therapist, I had dozens, it wasn't just 1 or 2, dozens of people who had begun to give me a lot of feedback that I should charge more. Coming from a blue-collar background, that shocked me. Because in lower socioeconomic status, paying for therapy seems luxurious, exorbitant. There's not a whole lot of value because it's a culture that is hustling to keep their head above water. I come from a lot of poverty. I just had another side of the family who did have a lot of money, so I had exposure to both sides of that coin. It shocked me That people who were paying me would look at me and say, I would pay you more. You were good at this. I had come from a sense of lack when it comes to money, very common in blue-collar circles. Clients told me, hey, what you offer is more than what I've gotten out of months and months, even a year of therapy in one session. I could have had 100 other therapists, 100 other professors tell me that. And I might have heard them, but hesitated. Having my own clients who were paying tell me that they were willing to pay me more was a more powerful encouragement. And it helped me step away from my own imposter syndrome. And it helped me charge a wage that helped me do more good in the world. That's part of how I initially had some space to be able to produce this show in the first place. So when you go to therapy, you are not just paying for minutes with someone. You are paying for an experience, which leads me to my next irrational belief. Because in lower socioeconomic status, paying for therapy seems luxurious, exorbitant. There's not a whole lot of value because it's a culture that is hustling to keep their head above water. I come from a lot of poverty. I just had another side of the family who did have a lot of money. So I had exposure to both sides of that coin. It shocked me that people who were paying me would look at me and say, I would pay you more. You were good at this. I had come from a sense of lack when it comes to money, very common in blue-collar circles. Clients told me, hey, what you offer is more than what I've gotten out of months and months, even a year of therapy in one session. I could have had 100 other therapists, 100 other professors tell me that. And I might have heard them, but hesitated. Having my own clients who were paying tell me that they were willing to pay me more was a more powerful encouragement. And it helped me step away from my own imposter syndrome. And it helped me charge a wage that helped me do more good in the world. That's part of how I initially had some space to be able to produce this show in the first place. So when you go to therapy, you are not just paying for minutes with someone. You are paying for an experience, which leads me to my next irrational belief. All right, y'all, we're going to stop there. Part 2 will pick up right here next week. Come tune in and listen to part 2 of Irrational Beliefs about trauma therapy and therapists. One of the things that we do for our patrons is we give you a shout out on the public feed, on the public show. So I want to thank these Patreon supporters. Y'all really are the backbone. It is such a beautiful circle of me and my team putting out this content to help support you, to help grow you. Patreons, y'all are our support too. There have been times through the years of doing the show where we could not have kept going without Patreon. We appreciate y'all so much, and I am so proud that that feels like the happiest little corner of the internet where people are genuinely and deeply working to heal themselves. It is a low stress, easy vibes community where we get to show up and take some nuggets of what will help support us through our days and through this life. Thank y'all so much. So I have some shout outs from Patreon producers of the show. I want to thank Tatum, Stephanie, Elizabeth, Diego, Sharon. Thank you, Patricia, Linda, Mary, Stephanie, Sarah, Ruth, Ramona, Sean, and Jesse. Light and love to all of you. If you want to get a shout out on the show, come participate, hang out, and you'll hear your name as a patron of Emotional Badass. Thank you for helping us get this content out all over the world. Head on over to patreon.com/emotionalbadass to get tons of content immediately at your fingertips that you can't find anywhere else on the internet. Light and love, y'all. I am an emotional badass. You are an emotional badass. And together, we are where Moxie meets mindful. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time for part 2 right here. Bye-bye.